How about GMB Studios?
GMB Studio, they my dog Sean B. How the fuck you know this? How? Hold on, bro. How? How you? I'm saying, how? Like, talk to me, bro. You the police? Is you the FBI? CIA? What's your?
You are Black Youngster. We have
How the fuck you know this? How? Hold on, bro. How? How you? I'm saying, how? Like, talk to me, bro. You the police? Is you the FBI? CIA? What's your?
You are Black Youngster. We have to know.
He was one of the first artists and only artists to show me love.
Anybody ever try to
Return
take?
love.
Anybody ever try to take your chain?
Nah, if they try to take mine, they gonna die like that. They gonna be like that, and they gonna be like, give me that, pow, 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 and they gonna fall like, they gonna die just like that. That's how they die.
You feel like sometimes if an artist gets their chain taken, like, do they want to still wear that chain and they get it back?
He's live, man. You know what I'm saying?
Do you still want to wear that chain though once you get it back, or you gotta like trade it in and get something else? Because you might be like, somebody done took it.
I mean, I think you know, people gotta understand, man. At the end of the day, everybody a human being.
People think Black Youngsta's downfall started when the music stopped hitting. That's not what happened. His downfall started the second he became the loudest voice in a war that was bigger than rap. Bigger than Memphis, bigger than loyalty, because this story isn't really about one artist falling off. It's about what happens when somebody spends years proving they're willing to crash out for a movement, only to realize way too late that movements don't always protect the people doing the dirty work. And by the time Black Youngsta figured that out, the damage was already done. We're talking about a man who came from absolutely nothing, South Memphis, poverty, violence, survival mode every single day, then somehow turned all of that into millions, fame, a label deal, and one of the most recognizable voices in Memphis rap. But instead of becoming a legend for the music, he became attached to one of the darkest chapters hip-hop has seen in years. And the wildest part? A lot of the warning signs were there from the very beginning. Because before the headlines, before the controversy, before the internet turned on him, Sammy Bentz was just another kid trying to escape South Memphis alive. No industry connections, no famous family, no shortcut into the rap game. He built everything from the ground up the Memphis way, flooding the streets with mixtapes until people couldn't ignore him anymore. The Fast Bricks tapes started buzzing locally around 2012. Raw energy, aggressive delivery, music that sounded like it came straight out of the trenches because it literally did. And eventually, one record changed everything. Heavy. That song exploded through Memphis like a warning shot. Loud, chaotic, authentic. The kind of song that made people instantly believe him because nothing about it sounded fake. That's when Yo Gotti stepped in. Within months, Black Youngsta was signed to Collective Music Group, one of the most powerful labels coming out of Memphis. And for a while, it looked like everything was lining up perfectly. Youngsta was dropping projects non-stop. His energy felt reckless in a way fans loved. He danced, he joked, he screamed on tracks. He made viral moments before TikTok was even controlling the industry. By 2017, he even launched his own imprint, Heavy Camp. The streets loved him because he never tried to sound polished. He sounded exactly like where he came from. But while Youngsta was climbing inside CMG, another Memphis rapper was building an empire completely outside of it. And that's where everything started going left. Because around the same time Black Youngsta was becoming CMG's loudest soldier, Young Dolph was becoming something different entirely. Independent, untouchable. Dolph built his career without signing to a major label. No machine behind him, no industry safety net. Just pure hustle and smart business moves through paper route empire. And according to stories that floated around Memphis for years, Yo Gotti once tried to sign Dolph. Dolph said no. That rejection planted seeds that eventually grew into one of the ugliest rap feuds of the decade. Then came 2016. Dolph dropped an album called King of Memphis. Now outside Memphis, that title might not sound like a big deal, but inside the city, that was pressure. That was politics. That was stepping into territory people already believed belonged to Gotti and CMG. And Black Youngsta immediately jumped to the front lines. Instagram videos, diss tracks, threats, pulling up in Dolph's neighborhood with cameras rolling. This wasn't normal rap promo anymore. It felt personal. Youngsta dropped Shake Some, openly mocking Dolph and daring him to respond. And even people who liked the music could tell this beef was moving in a dangerous direction, because Memphis rap has always had real street politics attached to it. And once artists start trying to embarrass each other publicly in their own city, things can spiral fast. But nobody realized just how serious it was until Charlotte. February 2017. Young Dolph was in Charlotte, North Carolina when over 100 rounds were fired into his SUV. 100. The only reason Dolph survived was because the vehicle was bulletproof. The story instantly became national news. Then Black Youngsta's name entered the conversation. Youngsta and 2 associates were arrested in connection to the shooting. Serious charges too. Conspiracy and firing into occupied property. The kind of charges that can completely destroy a career. But eventually, prosecutors dropped the case against him, saying there wasn't enough evidence placing him at the shooting itself. Legally, he walked away clean. Publicly, not even close. Because from that point forward, a huge part of the internet permanently connected Black Youngsta to violence surrounding Dolph. And instead of distancing himself from the situation, Youngsta kept leaning into the energy, kept dissing, kept performing, kept carrying himself like the war was still active, and Memphis noticed. The city understood something outsiders didn't. This beef never really cooled off. Even when the music slowed down, the tension stayed alive underneath everything. Then November 17th, 2021 happened. And after that day, nothing was ever the same again. Young Dolph pulled up to Meta's Cookies in Memphis, a place he supported regularly because he always tried to pour money back into the community. Then 2 gunmen opened fire. Just like that, Dolph was gone. The entire hip-hop world froze because Dolph wasn't just respected for music. He represented independence, ownership, authenticity. He proved you could become a star without letting the industry control you. And overnight, he became something even bigger, a symbol. Tributes flooded social media. Memphis mourned publicly. Fans packed the streets. Meanwhile, people immediately started watching Black Youngsta closely. At first, he stayed quiet. But then came the moment that changed public opinion forever. Days after Dolph's death, Youngsta performed Shake Some at a concert, the same diss track tied to their feud. And online, people lost their minds. Even people who understood street culture thought the timing looked horrible. Then things got even worse. Youngsta released I'm Assuming, and the visuals included cemetery imagery connected to Dolph's last name. That's when the backlash exploded into another level entirely. To a huge portion of the public, it looked like he was mocking a dead man. Whether that was actually the intention almost didn't matter anymore. The narrative had already been written. And in today's internet culture, perception moves faster than facts. Youngsta defended himself online, basically saying he came from an environment where sympathy wasn't rewarded. But the damage was already done, because there's a difference between looking fearless and looking reckless. And suddenly Black Youngsta wasn't trending because of music anymore. He was trending because people connected him emotionally to a tragedy that devastated Memphis. Then came the murder trial developments. And this is where things became even heavier. Over time, prosecutors charged multiple men in connection with Dolph's killing, including Justin Johnson, Cornelius Smith Jr., and Hernandez Govan. Then another name entered public discussion, Big Juke, Yo Gotti's brother. Court testimony and allegations surrounding the case sent shockwaves through hip-hop because suddenly the old CMG versus Dolph feud didn't look like ancient rap drama anymore. It looked tied to something much darker. Now, to be absolutely clear, Black Youngsta was never charged in Dolph's murder. That matters. But the streets don't always separate legal guilt from association, and Youngsta had spent years being the loudest public enemy Dolph had. So once the trial details started surfacing, people automatically attached his name to the conversation, whether there was evidence against him or not. That's the brutal reality of proximity. And then something happened that made the internet raise even more eyebrows. Right before the Hernandez-Govan trial started gaining major attention, Black Youngsta announced he was no longer with CMG. The timing immediately became a story on its own. because from the outside, it looked like somebody trying to create distance from an empire suddenly under massive scrutiny. Nobody knows every private detail behind that split, but fans dissected it instantly. Youngsta had spent years riding harder for CMG than almost anybody. So for him to separate publicly right before one of the biggest trials tied to the Dolph situation, people didn't see that as coincidence. They saw survival, and honestly, maybe it was. Because while all this chaos was unfolding publicly, Youngsta's personal life was falling apart too. In 2023, reports confirmed that his brother was shot and killed in Memphis. And tragically, that wasn't the first major loss his family suffered. Over the years, multiple people close to him had reportedly been taken by street violence. Think about how dark that really is. A man who built his image around surviving Memphis eventually watched Memphis keep taking pieces of his own family away. And the internet barely showed sympathy. That's how deep the resentment had become. Comment sections filled with trolling instead of condolences. People were so emotionally invested in the Dolph situation that even Youngsta's real-life grief became politicized online. And after that, his energy noticeably changed. The music slowed down. The viral moments slowed down. The public appearances became less frequent. It felt like somebody carrying years of pressure all at once. Then you add the legal issues on top of everything else. Weapon arrests, traffic stops, court cases, headlines stacking one after another. Even when cases got dismissed, the reputation damage stayed alive. And people underestimate what that does to an artist mentally. Imagine trying to stay creative while constantly dealing with lawyers, courtrooms, rumors, and public backlash at the same time. That kind of pressure drains people. Meanwhile, CMG kept growing bigger. Moneybagg Yo became a mainstream star. Glorilla exploded nationally. The label evolved into a rap powerhouse. But Black Youngsta increasingly felt like the one artist permanently tied to the darkest side of the Dolph feud. And culturally, the tide shifted toward Dolph's legacy, especially through Key Glock and Paper Route Empire continuing to grow after Dolph's death. To younger fans discovering Memphis rap today, Dolph often looks like the hero of the story. And if one side becomes the hero, the loudest enemy usually becomes the villain automatically. That's exactly what happened to Youngsta. His image became bigger than his music. That's the real downfall. Not bankruptcy, not disappearing completely, not one bad album. It was becoming permanently attached to a narrative the culture decided had winners and losers long before all the facts were fully known. And when that happens in hip-hop, it's almost impossible to reverse because the internet never forgets screenshots, never forgets diss tracks, never forgets timing, especially after somebody dies. But maybe the craziest part of this whole story is what it says about loyalty. For years, Black Youngsta played the role of the enforcer, the loud one, the aggressive one, the soldier willing to stand on business publicly while bigger figures stayed quieter. He absorbed the backlash, the controversy, the legal smoke, the public hatred. And eventually, when everything collapsed around the CMG versus Dolph storyline, he looked like the person left carrying the emotional weight of all of it. That doesn't erase his choices. But it does make people wonder whether he was ever truly protected the same way he protected others. And that's the lesson buried underneath this entire story. Sometimes the people screaming loyalty the loudest end up being the easiest to sacrifice when the pressure gets real. Now the big question is whether Black Youngsta can ever rebuild his legacy from here. Musically, it's possible. Hip-hop has seen artists come back from controversy before. But rebuilding culturally is harder. That requires honesty, vulnerability, reflection. And those are things street culture often teaches men to hide. Especially somebody raised in survival mode from South Memphis. Right now, it feels like Youngsta is still trying to figure out who he is outside of the war that defined his career. Because at one point, he genuinely had everything needed to become a Memphis legend. The charisma was real, the grind was real, the talent was real. But somewhere along the way, the beef became bigger than the music. And once that happened, the story stopped being about success. It became about consequences. Black Youngsta survived the streets. He survived controversy. He survived career collapses that would have destroyed other artists completely. But survival and legacy aren't the same thing. And right now, that's the part of the story still being written. So the real question isn't whether Black Youngsta fell off. The real question is whether he'll ever find a way to separate Sammy Benson from the chaos that consumed Black Youngsta. Because until that happens, the shadow of this story is probably never going away.